My name is Ethan Cole, and before my marriage broke me, my life was steady. I wasn't famous or flashy, but I was comfortable. I owned two small businesses in Riverside City. One brought in steady income. The other gave me freedom. I paid my bills on time. I slept well at night. Most days, I felt proud of the life I had built. I wasn't looking for love. I didn't feel lonely. I felt complete. Then I met Emily Lawson. It happened at a charity art exhibition on a quiet afternoon. She wasn't loud like the others. She stood in front of a painting, staring at it like it was alive. I asked what she saw in it. She smiled softly and said, "It feels lonely, but hopeful." That answer stayed with me. We talked for hours. She laughed gently like she didn't want to disturb the room. She listened when I spoke. When I asked for her number, I already knew I was in trouble. 3 weeks later, while we were having coffee, Emily mentioned her mother. "My mom is very protective," she said casually. I smiled. "That's normal." Emily didn't smile back. "She sacrificed everything for me," she added quickly. "So, she likes to be involved." I didn't know it then, but that sentence was a warning. Emily invited me to dinner so I could meet her mother, Margaret Lawson. The apartment was spotless, like nothing was allowed to exist unless it was approved first. Margaret greeted me with a tight smile and sharp eyes. "So Ethan," she said, studying me, "what exactly do you do?" I explained my businesses. She nodded slowly, unimpressed. "Businessmen can be unstable," she said calmly. Emily laughed nervously. "Mum, please." Margaret turned to her. "A man should be predictable." Then she looked back at me. "Emily is my only daughter." "I understand," I replied politely. "Good," she said. "Then don't waste her time." The table went quiet. Later that night, Emily stepped into the kitchen. Margaret followed me to the balcony. The city lights flickered below us. "I raised my daughter alone," she said. "I shaped her values, her future." I nodded respectfully. She leaned closer. "Don't come into her life and start rearranging things." I kept my voice calm. "I love your daughter." Margaret smiled for the first time. It wasn't warm. "Love doesn't last," she said softly. "Control does." That night, I told myself she was just a worried mother. I didn't know I had just shaken hands with my enemy. Emily and I got married 6 months later. I thought marriage would separate us from outside voices. I was wrong. Marriage didn't change Emily, but it changed us. At first, it was small things. "What should we eat tonight? Mom says too much rice isn't healthy." "What do you think about this apartment? Mom thinks the lighting is wrong." Margaret wasn't living with us, but her voice was everywhere. She called every morning and every night, sometimes in between. Emily answered instantly. "Mom, hi." "Yes, Mom." "Okay, Mom." One evening, I asked gently, "Emily, do you ever disagree with her?" She looked confused. "Why would I?" That answer made my stomach tighten. Margaret started visiting without warning. She rearranged furniture. She corrected my words. She criticized my cooking with a polite smile. "Oh, Ethan, this is fine, but Emily needs better." Emily said nothing. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. One night, after Margaret left, I sat quietly on the couch. I realized something was wrong, but I didn't know how deep it went. I told myself things would improve. I told myself love was stronger than influence. I was wrong. Our first serious argument wasn't about money or trust, it was about curtains. I wanted light-colored ones. Emily shook her head. "Mom says dark curtains make a home feel mature." I sighed. "Emily, it's our home." She snapped back. "You don't understand, she knows better." I stared at her. "About everything?" Emily burst into tears. "You're trying to separate me from my mother." That's when it hit me. We weren't arguing as two people. We were arguing as three. After that, Margaret's visits increased. She walked in like she belonged. She moved things around without asking. She corrected how I spoke to Emily. One afternoon she said casually, "Men like you usually get distracted." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "Success changes men. I hope you won't embarrass my daughter." Emily sat beside her. Silent. That silence hurt more than the words. That night I lay awake thinking about the balcony, about control, about how small my voice had become in my own marriage. Something was very wrong, and it was only getting started. One night after Margaret left, I finally asked the question burning inside me. "Emily, I said quietly. Are we married, or are you still living under your mother's roof? Emily looked shocked. Then she said something I will never forget. Mom only wants what's best for me. If you love me, you'll listen to her too. Something inside me cracked. In that moment, I understood the truth. I hadn't married a woman. I had married a system. Margaret wasn't just involved, she was in charge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment, the dinners, the calls, the silence, the control. I realized I was slowly disappearing. I decided then that something had to change. I suggested therapy the next morning. Emily hesitated, but she agreed. I felt hope for the first time in weeks. I didn't know that one suggestion would turn her mother into my enemy. I didn't know that love was about to be tested against control. And I had no idea how much I would lose trying to protect my marriage. The idea of therapy came from exhaustion. I was tired of choosing peace over honesty. I was tired of shrinking. One night, as Emily scrolled on her phone, I said softly, "What if we talked to someone? A counselor, just us?" Emily froze. "Why?" she asked. "Because I feel like I'm sharing my marriage," I said. "And I'm tired of competing with your mother." Her eyes filled with tears. "You think she's the problem," she whispered. I shook my head. "I think we're losing ourselves." Emily didn't answer, but she nodded slowly. The next morning, she told her mother. That afternoon, Margaret called me directly. "Ethan," she said coldly, "why do you want to take my daughter to therapy?" "We want to strengthen our marriage," I replied carefully. She laughed. "A stranger will teach you how to love my daughter?" "We need space," I said. Her voice sharpened. "Space from who?" Silence stretched between us. "You are poisoning my daughter against me," she snapped. "We're just trying to build our marriage," I replied. Her response came instantly. "You will regret this." For the first time since meeting her, I felt afraid. Therapy started the following week. The counselor, Dr. Helen Moore, was calm and observant. She listened without interrupting. Emily spoke first. "I feel like I'm always choosing," Emily admitted, "and I don't want to hurt anyone." Dr. Moore nodded slowly. "Marriage requires a new boundary," she said. "Parents cannot remain in the center." Emily began to cry. I held her hand. Then Dr. Moore said something that felt heavy and true. "You need distance," she said. "Especially from the person who controls decisions." Emily sobbed harder. I felt relief for the first time in months. Finally, someone saw it. That night, Emily told her mother everything. Margaret didn't call, she didn't visit. Instead, she sent me a message. "You are poisoning my daughter against me." I replied, "We're just trying to build our marriage." Her reply came seconds later. "You will regret this." I stared at the screen for a long time. Something had changed. This wasn't worry anymore. This was a threat. After that message, Margaret's tone changed completely. She called Emily crying. "You're abandoning me," she said. After everything I sacrificed, Emily was torn. I could see it in her eyes. At our next therapy session, Dr. Moore asked a simple question. "Are you willing to choose your marriage, even if it angers your family?" I answered immediately. "Yes." Emily hesitated. Then she nodded. That nod felt like victory. But it was also the moment Margaret declared war. When Margaret found out we were planning to move cities, she came to our apartment without warning. She stood in the living room with her arms crossed. "So you're running," she said. Emily tried to speak. "Mum." Margaret raised her hand, stopping her. She looked straight at me. "You will never be enough for her," she said, "and I will make sure she realizes that." Then she walked out and slammed the door. The walls shook. That night, Emily asked softly, "Do you think she'll forgive us?" I forced a smile. "In time." But deep inside I knew. This wasn't forgiveness. This was revenge. Leaving Riverside City wasn't just a move, it felt like a burial. To make a clean break, I started selling my businesses, one after another. Each signature felt heavier than the last. A friend pulled me aside. "You're shrinking yourself for love," he warned. I smiled weakly. "Sometimes love needs sacrifice." He shook his head. "Not self-destruction." I didn't listen. Relocation was expensive. Starting over was harder than I imagined. The money from the sales wasn't enough. I borrowed money. From friends, from investors. I told myself it was temporary, that I would rebuild quickly. We told Margaret we were leaving. She didn't call. She sent one message instead. Running won't change who you are. Emily read it quietly. She's hurt, she said. No, I replied. She's angry, she's losing control. Emily didn't respond. Silence had become her defense. As we packed our things, I felt fear creeping in. But I also felt determined. I believed distance would save us. I didn't know the ground beneath us was already breaking. Westbridge City was colder, quieter, anonymous. No one knew my name. No one cared about my past. Our apartment was small and bare. Emily smiled nervously. We'll make it work. I kissed her forehead. We will. I applied everywhere for work. The only job I got was manual labor. Long hours, heavy lifting. The first day I came home exhausted and soaked in sweat. Emily looked at me with worry. You don't have to do this, she said. I smiled. I do. For a while life improved. Margaret's calls slowed. Emily laughed again. We cooked together. We talked. I thought we survived. Then one night I noticed Emily smiling at her phone. Who's that? I asked casually. She jumped. Oh, Mum. Later I saw her wiping tears quietly. Did she say something? I asked. She misses me, Emily whispered. I turned away. Because I knew that look. It wasn't just love. It was the beginning of her return. A few months after the move, Emily stood in the bathroom holding a small white stick. Her hands were shaking. It's positive, she whispered. Time froze. Then joy crashed into me. We laughed, we cried, we held each other tightly. A baby. I thought this would heal everything. That night, Emily called her mother. Margaret screamed with excitement through the phone. My baby is having a baby. I smiled, trying to share the joy. Then Margaret said something that made my chest tighten. You'll need me now. Emily looked at me. She didn't say anything, but I saw the question forming in her eyes. Fear settled quietly inside me. Over the next weeks, Margaret called daily again. She gave advice about food, sleep, and stress. Don't upset him, she told Emily. Men leave when women depend too much. Emily repeated her words without realizing it. Pregnancy made Emily softer, more emotional, more open to influence. I tried to reassure her. We'll figure this out together. She nodded, but doubt lived behind her eyes. I realized the baby wasn't bringing peace. It was opening the door Margaret had been waiting for. One night, as Emily rested on the couch, she said something that made my stomach drop. Mum told me you used to date a woman named Vanessa. I nodded. That was years ago. Emily hesitated. She said you ruined a perfect match. That's not true, I said calmly. We just weren't meant to be. Emily looked conflicted. Mum says men like you get bored. Those words felt rehearsed. Margaret wasn't lying. She was twisting the truth. A few days later, Margaret suggested baby names over the phone. If it's a girl, name her Sapphire, she said. Emily smiled. I love that. I froze. Sapphire was Vanessa's favorite gemstone. Margaret knew that. That wasn't coincidence. That was a message. Margaret wasn't just controlling the present. She was rewriting my past. She painted me as restless, as untrustworthy, as a risk. Emily didn't argue. Silence was becoming agreement. That night, I lay awake realizing something painful. Margaret didn't hate me because I married Emily. She hated me because I existed outside her control. And now with pregnancy, she had the perfect reason to return. Not as a villain, but as a savior. As Emily's pregnancy progressed, the pressure grew heavier. Margaret called every morning. Eat this. Don't stress, Ethan. Men panic when responsibility grows. Emily repeated her advice like rules. One afternoon, Emily said quietly, Mum says I'll need help after the baby comes. I swallowed. Help from who? She looked down. From her. The room felt smaller. That night, Margaret called me directly. You can't raise a child alone, she said calmly. Emily needs her mother. We'll manage, I replied. Margaret laughed softly. You always think you know best. Her confidence scared me. 2 weeks before Emily's due date, Margaret arrived unannounced. She stepped into our apartment, looked around and smiled. So this is how you live now, she said. Not we, you. She hugged Emily tightly and ignored me. From that moment, she took over. Doctor visits, food, sleep schedules. Emily allowed it. I felt myself being pushed to the edges again. Only now, there was a child coming, and the stakes were higher. Sapphire was born on a rainy night. She was tiny, fragile, perfect. When I held her, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. She's beautiful, I whispered. Margaret hovered close. She looks like my side of the family, she said. Emily smiled weakly. I didn't care. I thought a baby would soften Margaret. I was wrong. At home, Margaret stopped pretending. Don't hold her like that. Men don't understand babies. She needs structure. Emily looked to her mother before every decision. One night, I reached for Sapphire. Margaret stepped between us. She's sleeping. She's my daughter, I said. Margaret looked straight at me. And she's my granddaughter. Emily said nothing. That silence told me everything. I wasn't just losing authority, I was being erased. The house no longer felt like mine. It felt like I was visiting someone else's life. The breaking point came on a quiet afternoon. I returned from work and heard Sapphire crying weakly. Her cries sounded different. Emily ran toward me. Mum was watching her. My chest tightened. We rushed Sapphire to the hospital. The doctor examined her and said she was dehydrated from crying too long without proper feeding. She'll be okay, he said. But this could have been dangerous. I felt sick. Margaret stood by the door, pretending to be shocked. I turned to her. This is your fault. You endangered my child. Margaret didn't apologize. She leaned closer and said calmly, You think you can control me? That calmness terrified me, because it meant she felt no guilt. That night, I knew something had to end. This wasn't about respect anymore. It was about safety. It was about survival. And Margaret had crossed a line she could never uncross. The morning after the hospital visit, I booked a train ticket. I didn't ask for permission. I told Margaret calmly, You're leaving today. She stared at me like I had made a joke. You don't get to decide that, she said. I do, I replied. This is my child. This is my home. Emily stood behind me, shaking. She didn't argue. Margaret smiled slowly. You think this ends it? I didn't answer. Margaret packed loudly. She slammed drawers. She sighed dramatically. Before leaving, she turned to Emily and whispered, You'll need me again. Then she looked at me. You haven't won, she said. When the door closed behind her, the apartment felt quiet, too quiet. Emily cried that night. I should have stopped her sooner. I held her. What matters is that she's gone. But even as I said it, I felt something heavy, because Margaret didn't leave defeated. She left confident. And confidence like that doesn't come without a plan. For a few days, peace returned. Emily rested. Sapphire slept better. I breathed easier. Then the debts came crashing in. My phone buzzed non-stop. Payment overdue. Immediate response required. I had sold everything to start fresh. Now I had nothing left to fall back on. Emily noticed the stress. I didn't know it was this bad, she whispered. It's my responsibility, I said. I chose this. That night, an unknown number texted me. I see you're struggling, Ethan. My hands shook. Another message followed. Running didn't save you. I knew who it was. Margaret didn't need to be present anymore. Her influence traveled through fear. Emily received calls too. She just wants to help, Emily said softly. No, I replied. She wants control. I started documenting everything. Messages, dates, times. If Margaret wanted to play games, I would keep records. I had learned something important. Silence protects manipulators. Proof exposes them. Margaret tried to return quietly. She didn't knock on the door. She called Emily instead. She's only trying to help, Emily said one evening. Maybe just for a while. I shook my head. A while is how she takes over. Emily hesitated. That hesitation scared me. One afternoon, I came home to find Sapphire crying again. Her diaper was soaked. Emily looked panicked. Mum was on the call, she said. She told me what to do. We rushed Sapphire to the doctor again. This time, I didn't stay quiet. I confronted Margaret on speakerphone. You are endangering my child, I said. Stay away. She laughed softly. You're too emotional, Ethan, she said. Men always are. That laugh flipped a switch inside me. This wasn't confusion. This was deliberate. Margaret wasn't making mistakes. She was proving power. And I finally understood. This wasn't about helping Emily. This was about punishing me. That night, Emily cried harder than I had ever seen. I don't know who to listen to, she said. I feel torn. I took her hands gently. Emily, your mother isn't protecting you, I said. She's controlling you. Emily looked down. I was raised to obey her, she whispered. And now you're raising a child, I replied. What kind of example do you want? Emily was silent for a long time. Then she said quietly, I don't want Sapphire growing up afraid. Those words felt like a door opening. Together we reviewed everything, the messages, the hospital visits, the patterns. Emily finally saw it. Margaret wasn't reacting, she was planning. Emily blocked her number. We informed Sapphire's doctor and daycare. We warned neighbors. For the first time, we weren't reacting, we were preparing. And preparation felt like strength. Margaret made one final attempt. She showed up at Sapphire's daycare claiming she was family. The staff called us immediately. When we arrived, Margaret was calm and smiling. She's confused, Margaret said, pointing at Emily. Ethan controls her. Emily stepped forward. No, she said firmly, you control through fear. Margaret's smile faded. We presented our records, the messages, the medical reports. The staff asked Margaret to leave. She looked at me with cold anger. This isn't over, she said. But her voice lacked confidence now. That was the difference. She had lost access. As we drove home, Emily held my hand tightly. I see it now, she said. I really see it. I nodded. That night, our apartment felt quiet again. Not the scary kind, the peaceful kind. And for the first time since our marriage began, I believed we might actually survive. After that day, Margaret's calls stopped. Not because she changed, but because she lost access. Emily and I rebuilt slowly, carefully. We spoke openly every night. No secrets, no whispered calls, no silent obedience. Sapphire's routine became stable. She slept better. She smiled more. I started rebuilding my life too. I took small consulting jobs online. Nothing big, but honest work. Each payment felt like a step back to myself. Emily returned to work with focus. She stopped asking for permission. She started making decisions. One night she said quietly, I didn't know how deep her control was. Control feels like care when you grow up inside it. Emily squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up. That meant everything to me. Our home felt different now. Quiet but strong. No outside voices, no hidden fear, just us. For the first time since I met Emily, I felt like her husband again. Not a guest. Not an obstacle. A partner. Rebuilding trust wasn't fast. Some days, Emily hesitated before making choices. I didn't rush her. I stayed patient. Therapy helped. Emily learned something painful. Guilt is not love. Fear is not loyalty. Margaret had trained her to feel responsible for her emotions. Breaking that habit took time. I learned something too. Sacrifice without respect becomes self-destruction. I had given up too much without setting boundaries. Love shouldn't require erasing yourself. One evening, Emily said, I used to think choosing you meant betraying her. And now? I asked. And now I see choosing my marriage doesn't mean abandoning my mother, she said. It means protecting my family. That was growth. We blocked every unknown number. We warned schools and doctors. We created rules and stuck to them. Margaret tried once more to reach out through a distant relative. Emily shut it down calmly. No anger. No explanation. Just silence. And silence, I learned, is powerful when it's chosen. Months passed without Margaret's voice in our lives. I paid down debts slowly. Emily grew confident in her role at work. Sapphire thrived. One quiet evening, Emily asked me something. Do you ever regret marrying me? I answered honestly. No, I regret not seeing the warning signs earlier. She nodded. So do I. We talked about the early days, the balcony, the control, the silence. Emily said softly, I thought obedience was love. And I thought patience was strength, I replied. We were both wrong. Real love requires boundaries. That night I realized something important. The most dangerous betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from people who believe they own you. I didn't just marry Emily. I married Margaret's system. And breaking that system nearly destroyed us. But we survived because we chose clarity over comfort, truth over fear, and partnership over control. Margaret never returned. Not because she wanted peace, but because she had lost her power. She couldn't control Emily anymore. She couldn't rewrite the story, and she couldn't access Sapphire. Her system failed once the door closed. Life settled into something calm and real. I stopped looking over my shoulder. Emily laughed freely again. Sapphire grew strong and curious. One afternoon, I held my daughter and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the fragile kind, the steady kind. Emily joined me and said, "I'm proud of us." I smiled. We earned this. We didn't win by fighting harder. We won by refusing to play her game. Control only survives when it's fed. And we stopped feeding it. I used to think the worst thing that could happen in marriage was cheating. I was wrong. The worst betrayal is when your partner cannot choose you, when a third voice runs your home, when silence replaces loyalty. I didn't just marry a woman, I married a system built on fear and control. And breaking free almost cost me everything, but we learned. Love can last, only when it stands on respect, only when it has boundaries. Today I hold my daughter and feel strong, no hidden strings, no extra voices, just us. And if control ever tries to return, it will meet the same answer every time. Not here, not again.